Hello everyone, welcome back to the Shop Stool podcast. This is episode 4 of season 7. Jeez, I can't believe we're 4 episodes in already. How are you guys going?
Yeah, good.
Pretty good, yeah. Yeah, I was saying in the pre-show ramble there that winter has finally caught up with us here in Victoria. So we shivered through a -2 feels like -7 morning today.
Yeah,
so it's going to be testing out the insulation in my new workshop. But
Yes.
no, all is good. All is good. How are you guys?
Yeah, good. I'd like to say I'm enjoying the depths of winter as well, but I feel like anytime I mention that on the show, I just get shot down. So I'll keep my thoughts to myself.
Thank you.
I've had a very, very productive last 2 weeks, just in and around the workshop. I'm not sure if you guys saw on Instagram, I delivered that drum,
Yes.
that table base. Thanks to Dan from Riverside Woodworks coming over to help me get that up the stairs. Man, like delivery day is such a pain. How would you guys approach this? Would you ever expect the client to be involved in the getting it up the stairs? Is that something that you would even consider?
Depends on the client.
I typically, if I can see that there could be a situation where I need extra hands, I might broach the subject in a way that they might then respond with, "Oh, I could help if you want." But if they don't offer that, I won't ask, and then I'll arrange for someone to help me.
Yeah, it's on you. Yeah,
But because often, depending what it is, if you have to do multiple trips with big things, some people aren't necessarily as fit or strong as they think they might be, and they might be able to do one trip but not 7. So sometimes it's better just to allow a lot more time and find some other pair of hands.
Yeah, because this thing was pretty heavy. Funny story, almost was a disaster of a day, because I've got pedestrian doors or general purpose doors into my workshop. I have to keep everything at 820 wide. That little circle piece was 900, and Dan and I both got to the door and we looked at each other, and it was like in that moment we both had the same thought of, oh shit. And luckily we were able to turn it and twist it and get it through, but yeah, that was almost a disaster. But the main reason I wanted to bring this up as well, just a story that this might help people out there, just at least be a reminder. On this round table, this base, so it's a round base with a flat disc of plywood on top, and that was the connection between the tabletop and the base. Where that plywood was screwed into the drum, that drum wasn't perfectly flat. So, Joe, you actually talked about this before at the end of last week. I sanded it, but it was close. It wasn't perfect, but we're talking a millimeter or 2. But I put it on, I thought, who's going to look at that? I mean, that's under the table. I literally had the client sitting on the floor with me while I'm screwing in the tabletop. And he went, oh, that's interesting. I can see daylight through those gaps. And I just went, oh, shit. Because your brain's racing because you're thinking, well, what do I do? Do I just own up to this? Do I call it a feature? And in his defense, he just said, oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's under the table.
Yeah.
But he fucking saw it, and I was like, there's no way anyone's going to see that.
Yes. That happens. Sometimes people get out the level even.
Yeah, well, that's right. You had that with your cabinets, right?
Yes, on the episode that doesn't exist.
That one.
Yeah. Yes, it can be sometimes, it's fine. Sometimes it's not so good, depending on clients. Usually they all say, it doesn't matter because I can't see it unless I'm sitting, inside the cabinet or under the table. Like most people are pretty reasonable. But yeah, that was the first thing. When you broached that drum idea of that table, my first thought was, how do you make it flat? Because it's a hard thing to cut flat. So
luckily they'd already expressed that underneath where it sits, it's going to be on those furniture pads.
Yeah, right.
So that's fine. So it's elevated on that end, but yeah, on the top side, I thought I'd get away with it. But yeah, it's the same as people who finish the underside of the table to the same level as the top of the table.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't believe, if it's somewhere that's not going to be touched, I don't think it warrants it. But it seems like there's another camp of people who are like, you are a shit craftsman if you don't do everything to 240 grit everywhere.
Yeah, I agree. I am not of the school that everything should be, perfect on every side most of the time. I think, I think that just for me just comes from a traditional point of view. Like anything that's older than 20 years, 30 years has got kind of crappy sides to it. The backs of things, underneaths of things, it's pretty normal. And I feel like it's maybe only since the birth of YouTube woodworkers that things have just been finished to the umpteenth degree. And I guess it's nice, but I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
I might stay out of this conversation.
I can see the look. I was going to say, what do you think, bro?
I don't know, like, I would always finish them to the same degree, really. Like,
Right.
they might, I might skip one step. Like, maybe I might not, go over it with a Scotch-Brite, like, for the very last time to denib it or something. But it'll generally always have 3 coats, top and bottom. The thing that I do agree with you that there is a crappy side to most pieces of furniture. So, obviously, I'm going to grade the timbers so that there's a show face that's facing up. But I don't know, like if it's the underside of a table, I think it is still something that gets touched. Like people put their hands on it and things, and I want it to feel the same top and bottom. And I don't think it creates that much more work. It depends on the piece that you're doing, but yeah, I would generally do them to the same level of finish.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's interesting. When, like you say about grading timber, I think that's obviously most people probably
Yeah.
do that. And I'm just thinking the majority of tables I've made, there's always one plank or something where I really have just got to put a crappy piece on that's showing on the bottom, like it's a big gouge out of it, or there's some weird, but the other side of the board looks beautiful, so that's
Yep.
fine. And I think for the sake of, well, for me, I guess, well, anybody, that when you go and pick out the timber for the tabletop, you go and choose whatever you need, 10 planks, and it's all rough sawn, and you can't really tell what you've got. And that's the timber you've got to work with. And you come home and you dress it. If you found a couple of boards that were crappy on one side but really good on the other side, do you go and buy extra timber? Or do you say, well, I'm going to put it on the bottom and we're going to have this crappy defect on the bottom of the tabletop, but it's on the bottom of the tabletop. And I feel like there's that school of people who would replace that timber, but at what cost? Like, someone's got to pay for that. I mean, it kind of runs into, I think, Robin, what you wanted to talk to about as well. It's like, do you pay extra for whose fault is it? Or at what point is enough?
Let's get into that topic, Robin, because you've obviously had a couple of videos talking about it this week.
Yeah, so just backstory for everyone who didn't watch the video. I put together one of these steel benches with timber slats for a client. Everything was going well. I used a nice timber for it, milled it, dressed it, finished it, put it together, sat on it, and went, there's way too much flex in this timber. A little side note, and I don't know if I've talked about this before. I contacted him and asked him if there's this little, because I've seen them on benches before. It's like a perpendicular strip of steel that runs through the middle that connects all the slats together.
Yeah.
And I asked him if he had that, and he said no. I think that would have solved the problem.
Yeah.
But I think it's just worth adding that. Anyway, I contacted him and said, I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna put some steel strips underneath it. And then he said to me, cool, how much extra do I owe you for that? So I said, nothing. I quoted you, I can't remember what it was, whatever the price was, to finish this for you. That's what it is. Money comes out of my pocket. I ended up making very, very little profit on the job. So I put the question out on the YouTube video for it. What did people think? And surprisingly, out of all the people who commented specifically on that, I think 50% said no, don't take the money, as expected. 20% said yes, I should have taken the money. And then the rest of the people said, well, it depends, circumstantial. But one of the main delineations between whether you should or shouldn't, well, there was two really. The first is that if it was my mistake, which it was, technically, I cannot take that money. End of story, discussion over. And then the second point is if you have a variation, which is a lot more common in the building industry, not so much in what we do because we deliver a product. But if you have a variation, which is the client's decision, then it's okay to take the money.
Absolutely, yeah.
What do you think?
Well,
maybe a better question. Would you guys, in that scenario, let's scale it up though, because in my case we're talking hundreds of dollars. If this was a $10,000 job, would you take that money from an extra few $1,000s? Would you take it from the client?
that is tricky because you need to be specific.
Yeah.
Well, it's your mistake. So you've made a
Well,
mistake,
if it's my mistake, then it's my mistake.
but the client's offered it to you without you asking.
I'd really have to think about that.
Consult your lawyer first, Joey. Don't incriminate yourself.
If it was,
I would say it would depend if it was a design issue. Say it was the client came to me with a design, and they said, "I want you to make it exactly how this design is," and then I miss something structurally that doesn't really make sense, and then I build it. I'm building it to their design, and then I'd have to come back with them with the feedback and say, "Yeah, this doesn't work." Then, yeah, I'd be more than happy to take the money. I would just quote them on it and say, "Well, these are the changes that need to be made to the design that you brought to me." If it was something that I had designed that really didn't work, I'd probably put it on myself to fix it, I would think. Because most of the mistakes are corrected using labor. Like, I've never had to scrap a job. Like, I've never had to glue something up and then go, Jesus, and then take it apart and I'm out of pocket like $1,000 worth of timber. I've never had to do it.
no.
Usually, fixing mistakes is just laborious. So yeah, it's your cost, it's your time. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's times where it is appropriate to take it. Like, I don't think you should say no. It's exactly like, again, we apply this to any other profession, and people would be charging for their time. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think if the client, which has happened to me several times, there's a change to a design, suddenly something has to be different. It's absolutely, this is what it's going to cost because it is what it is. It's extra to the original price. I actually, thinking about it, had a similar thing to you, Robin, where I probably a year ago now, I made a kitchen island, and there was a stone top going on it, and I had to make a steel bracket to kind of take the weight of the island. And the steel bracket I made all bendy, wobbly, not thick enough, and I went through. So this is my design fault because I kind of backyard engineered this thing, and it wasn't strong enough. So I had to go through 3 iterations to get to the point where I made it strong enough. It cost me maybe $500, but the kitchen's like a $30,000 kitchen, so it was like I have to take this one, and it really wasn't too hard, but I had to make it like 3 or 4 extra trips to site, which is, well, no one wants to do that, but you got to fix it.
It's interesting listening to the values that you guys are talking about. So $30,000 kitchen, $500 fix. If that fix is 25% of the job,
Yeah.
what do you do then? Because then at that point you're almost making no profit.
When I first saw that thing with the seat, so if we just talk specifically about it, my first question was, what was there before? Because had you tried to sit on it, was it already taken apart, or were the old timbers still there?
The old timbers the slats weren't part of it, so I couldn't see that. The backrest was there, so I made them a little bit thicker than the backrest. Some people, or it might have been a couple of people, dropped in the comments that you should be going with the standard size. So the local councils will use a much thicker timber.
Yeah.
That's the standard size for those benches, which I didn't, assuming that bloodwood would be, because it's quite a strong timber, assuming that would be enough. So that was the thought process that went into that.
I guess in that case, I definitely would have taken the money for something that's 25% of the cost of the job. I would have taken something just so I'm not working for free. Also, I would have probably put it in the context that you didn't know what this was. It was like a broken apart thing, and you were putting it together unsure or without a way to know how it was put together in the first place. There probably was a steel strut that was missing, and so you're kind of making it up as you go along. So perhaps to cover yourself in the future, if anything like that, you just need to word your pricing in a way that says, I'll do my best, but I don't actually know. No one knows, so it might be that some extra bits and pieces have to be allowed for afterwards.
And I like that idea, because what a few people said to me was you need to add a contingency percentage, 10%.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with that logic, though, is you can add your contingency, but then you can still stuff up outside of that. You can't just keep adding bigger and bigger contingencies to the point where you're doing 100% contingency, because you could always miss it. So I like that idea of wording it, especially with something where it's not entirely under my control. This may have variations along the way.
Yeah, I mean,
I think through experience you'll learn these things, Robin, as well. And if you, in terms of structural issues with pieces, you'll just naturally start, like, this job will stick in your mind. So if you get something similar in the future, you're going to know automatically. So I think you'll find that with experience, these kind of questions will start to take care of themselves. But if it's a client is offering to pay to remedy a job, like, they're obviously wanting it done right as well, and they're respecting you for your worth. So I honestly wouldn't have a problem with saying, okay, we'll work it out. I'll work out how many hours it's going to take, and I tell you what, maybe I'll cover half of those hours and you cover the other half of those hours, and then everybody's happy.
Or you cover materials.
Yeah, if it's material heavy, if the fix is material heavy, then kind of just split it.
Yeah. And just don't burn that relationship with the client, but I think meeting them in the middle is probably quite a good way to shake hands on it.
Yeah.
It was I assumed it was going to be flat out 100% no's. End of story. So to have that spread across the comments, I was quite surprised. Other than that, I am in the process of quoting up for a very exciting job. It's a TV cabinet, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this. So now, through the power of YouTube, because we're bringing stuff to everyone on video, I can actually share my screen and we can talk about this. I do apologize to everyone who's watching on, listening on audio only. We'll try to explain it as best we can. So let's do that. You guys should be able to see the screen now.
Ooh.
Can you see it? Awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is a quote that I'm working on, and I for some reason seem to have lost. There we go. Okay. So this is a TV unit. This is essentially what the client wants. Mm-hmm. And I had a couple of questions that I was hoping to get your guys' opinions on. So this curved area here, Bryan, how would you build that?
There's a couple of different ways. So it's going to be, let's describe the piece for the people that are only on audio. So it's like a low banquette kind of cabinet-y thing that has a large radius curve to each end of the cabinet with a flat top. So you're asking about how I would do the ends. You can either do it with bendy ply and fixed onto a permanent form. Like if you pan around, you're not going to see the inside of that curve anywhere. Or are you going to have it clad on?
No, so I was
okay.
Gonna have,
all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would probably just build up a form, like, just fins, plywood fins, and then bendy ply, and just tack it on, and then put a veneer over the top of the outside.
So will that be strong enough? So when you talk about fins, you're talking about vertical pieces of
No, not necessarily. Well, that's it. That's another way you could do it. But yeah, I'm thinking of, you're taking a quadrant. Like if you imagine looking down at it in plan, so you've got some fins that will support the profile. Maybe you have sections. They run horizontal. Yep.
Okay.
And you might have one top, one bottom, and then two other fins or three other fins.
Yeah.
And it
that'll
could literally
be-
just be MDF, plywood, whatever you want. Nice and
And then-
strong, screwed and glued so that the form is strong. And then with the bendy ply, you'd just be gluing it. And, you could put some little brad nails in there or something that would pin it back to the form. If you don't have obviously the way that you really want to do it is with a vacuum press. But if you don't have a vacuum press, just use some brad nails and tape and stretch it across that form. Or the other way, which is what you were saying, is like a kerf cut, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So running vertical kerf lines, it can work well. You just got to practice with it to make sure that it's not sort of you don't end up with a faceted front. You still want that smooth curve. So sometimes kerf cutting can be a bit hit or miss. I think if you remember Nathan from Haymere, he's done a few cabinets like that, which he's done kerf cuts on. So his stuff might be worth looking at for you. And then you can either just fill the kerfs with epoxy or whatever glue, and that'll hold the form on the inside. So you don't really, you might need one vertical batten or something if you're going to do it that way, or two vertical battens. But I think the easier way to do it is using horizontal fins and bendy ply, I think.
And that bendy ply, how thick is it?
No,
Four-
nine,
what-
no- 9 or 5 that comes in, I think.
Yeah, anywhere between.
Oh, as thick as that. Wow.
Yeah, but you just build it up in multiple sheets, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so you do a couple of the bendy pliers,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you end
Yeah.
up with... Oh,
So-
okay, so that'll be heap strong.
Yeah. So if you think
Oh
you're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
be,
plenty strong.
if you want to build typically say an 18 mil material for the carcass or whatever, then you can use 2 9 mil sheets or 3 4.5 mil sheets or whatever, and build it up, and even have as many as you like.
Yep.
I guess for me the fundamental question would be, do you philosophically want to have it as solid timber because that's how you want to build it, or do you not mind using veneer because there's that kind of separates your paths of how to do it?
So all this timber is Polytech. Brian, have you worked with Polytech before?
Nope.
Joe, I think it's actually, I don't know if it's in New Zealand as
I
well,
don't
but it's
know.
essentially just a laminate MDF.
Okay.
Okay.
So
it's
there's no
veneered
solid
anyway.
wood in this. Yeah, it's veneered
So-
anyway.
I would essentially do it like Brian, but the way I would approach it naturally, instead of having horizontal fins, Robin, if you think about it as a reverse skate ramp,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a top and a bottom which is cut to the curve, top panel, bottom panel cut to the curve, and then a whole bunch of vertical little studs that connect the top and the bottom together, you've essentially got a skate ramp, and then you just shoot on some bendy ply over the face of it, and then you've got your curve.
So you're talking about vertical members around this curve like
Yeah.
that, up
Yeah.
and down.
E-
Yeah, okay.
Every 50 mil or so, just some like 18 mil bits of pine screwed in top and bottom on your form, and that gives you the form, and then you shoot on the face of that piece of bendy ply, and then because you probably don't have vacuumy stuff, I would just use contact adhesive for the veneer. Get a fleece backed veneer if you can, so it's easy to cut. You can cut it with scissors, and you don't have to worry about it falling to bits.
Mhm.
That's probably the easiest way to go about that. Contact adhesive, people, I mean, it's not the ideal, but it's difficult to clamp a veneer like that without a vacuum.
Yeah, I assumed I'd be going contact because of that, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. That's good food for thought. Yeah, because the curve bending idea, I'd love to try because I'm interested in it. But because it'll be the first time that I'm trying to get two curves symmetrical, I'm just worried that it's just going to turn into it's potentially going to turn into a bigger drama.
You've got a router, eh?
Yep.
So you can make one of those curve pieces as a template, and then just copy route all the other pieces, and you've got exactly the same curve as well.
Yeah.
Or have someone CNC them out for you, but
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, that's why I like what you're saying, Brian, with the fins, because then, yeah, I can just use that master template to cut all those fins out.
But it's not like you're saying. Is it going to be strong enough? Like that's not going to be load bearing at all by the
No.
look of usually like all your cabinetry is on the inside. What, you're going to do it melamine, are you, on the inside?
Yeah, so client's happy to go with white melamine on the inside and
Yep.
then this Polytech MDF laminate on the outside.
Yeah. So all that end panel is doing is it's just an infill piece of cladding. So yeah, it's
Yeah. I asked her if she wanted this to be a door as well, and she said no. And then just the relief that washed off me was immeasurable. Yeah.
I think there's another mega classy joints. I think he did something like that where it is the curved doors that open. Yeah, it's yeah. I think you should be very glad that she said no, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I would suggest to the client, or it's up to you really, but for me, because people often say, "Oh, just make the inside white MDF or whatever," because they think it's cheaper. Well, it is cheaper, but it also still looks a bit like something you could buy at a shop, and you could suggest, or before you do, look into using grey or black melamine, and it just increases the classiness and separates it from like a vanity or a cheap kitchen or something, and it gives it a bit more depth and slightly more professional. If the inside is,
there we go. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks so much more professional now that it's grey, right?
So the reason I didn't go that route, because I did think of that, is because you put the fear of God in me, Joe, to not
with
use black.
I wouldn't do black. I'd go grey, but yeah.
Ah, okay. Whoops. Why not? I assume grey would have the same issues where it scratches.
Grey's much more friendly. Then black just shows up everything. But in this situation, you could handle these small pieces of black without scratching it and marking it up. The problem with black is the edge tape and getting the glue squeeze out all over the black product, and it's a right nightmare. Although there is citrus based cleaners.
Like orange oil.
Orange
and all
oil.
that kind of stuff.
That will take off that hot melt glue off the melamine pretty well. So you could use that to clean up the black edging. But grey, I think that looks 10 times better than the white.
I'm definitely with Joey on that. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. All right, I'll put that too, because I think the difference between the white and grey, there isn't too much in the cost, but a sheet of this Polytech is around $270 for a sheet.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why I said to her, let's go white on the inside, because you're saving a fair bit of money. All right, and then the last thing, with this design, you can see I've got the cabinet doors landing on this top section, this top rail, and these inside verticals, but I don't have one along the bottom. Do you guys think that can fly? Or do I don't need another...
That kind of has to happen, really. You could save it. So what I would do, at this point, I would draw out all the sheets, how many sheets of product you think you might be going to use, like you've done.
There we go, he's already done it.
Yep, and if you can get away with, like if you don't have to buy a whole sheet just because of that bottom panel, you could just add a piece of solid timber or something to that front edge of the bottom panel. It doesn't have
Do I need to, though?
No, it just, like some people go, oh, it's really nice, but can we save a couple $100? Well, you go, well, yeah, maybe I could save a couple $100 if we make the bottom grey instead of the veneered panel. That's the only reason I'd do that.
I meant more from a structural perspective. So when this door closes,
no.
there's no doorstop there to butt against.
Doors never
It's
stop
supported on
against-
3 edges, right? It's got the hinge side, the along the handle on the top, and then the other side. It's going to be totally fine. That door is
and it's
all good.
tiny, and it's going to be MDF. It's going to stay flat. It's fine.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, that's cool, because you're right. That is, you basically spelled it out, Joe. I can get away with one less sheet by not putting that in, which is why I don't want to put it in, because it's going to literally be one sheet for that bottom piece. So yeah, okay.
It does change. Just be aware that, and you can see that bottom sheet under the door. I think, is that what we're looking at? We can see the edge of that bottom panel.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are going to have to do something with that edge that's visible if the whole sheet's not oak. Do you know what I mean?
So this is more of their Polytech stuff.
Yeah, so it is it has an edging to it.
So I'll edge
Yep.
band it.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
I can edge band. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sweet.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed our first visual section of this podcast. To everybody on Spotify, apologies.
I didn't mean it to go for so long. So
Nice. I like that.
yeah, But I
Real
thought, yeah,
time
that-
problem solving.
yeah, that's cool. That's answered the question. I'm so stoked you said that about that bottom piece because I was lying in bed last night. I went, oh shit! I forgot about the because I was looking, and then I jumped out of bed, ran to my kitchen, and I was like opening all the doors. There's a bottom piece on all of my kitchen doors. Shit! I got to put it in.
Those small cabinets are quite different. I mean, you think about cabinets that join with two doors that join together on the same cabinet. And there's nothing on that. Usually, with the cabinet where the doors join, there's nothing behind there often. So typically 3 sides is what you normally have.
Cool. Brian, how's your event going?
It's going well, yeah.
Is
the
it
first
still going?
weekend. It's going to be next weekend as well, so it's over 2 weekends. So, don't know what time. What time do we usually release the podcast on Sunday? Sunday morning?
It's 9 or 10.
Yeah, so people might hear this and have the chance to come down on Sunday, but it's going to be 10 till 5, Saturday and Sunday. It was, it was really good. Like I said, we've started having the first bits of kind of wintry weather here, which I think really helped with numbers. Like, people can't do stuff outside, so they're coming inside. I got a last minute invite to be interviewed for the ABC for their live radio, and I was like,
Oh, cool.
I don't get nervous about doing public speaking stuff, but live on the radio just via a phone line to a presenter that I haven't spoken before,
Dicey.
far out, that was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
But
next
I'm like,
level.
but I'm reassuring myself, going, who listens to the radio anymore? And then over the course of the next 2 days, we heard you on the radio. We didn't know anything about the event, so we decided to come in. And I was like, oh, right, okay. And they're like, yeah, we just popped up. And I was like, oh, you live in Ballarat? No, we live in Warrnambool. And I'm like, you heard that on the radio and then hopped in your car for 2.25 hours to come up to it? Yeah, we had nothing else to do. I tell you what, like the number of people who probably within my sort of my sales demographic that still listen to the radio. So,
Interesting.
all those conversations we've had about whether print advertising is worth it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe a cheeky radio advert is. It sounds so ridiculous. It sounds so antiquated, like from a different era. But I would have had maybe 70 to 80 couples who came in over that weekend and said, I heard you on the radio.
Yeah, wow.
So there you go.
That's 70 to 80 more than I would have expected.
Yeah, I was shocked. I'm glad I didn't know that before I did the interview, because then I would have been properly nervous. But it all went pretty well. I scaled, I'm sure you've seen a few of the things on Instagram, but I scaled down the number of pieces that I've brought into the space, because last year it was... I think I probably had 6 pieces of furniture in a pretty small little alcove. And there's all these restrictions. You can't fix anything to the walls because it's a heritage building, so everything has to like hang off a picture rail height or just be sitting loose on the floor. So I had to spend quite a bit of time thinking about how I was going to approach the actual exhibition design side of it. So I came up with these little hanging shelves and got myself a 3D printer and 3D printed a whole sort of vignette of little models.
Really cool. I like those.
It was good, yeah. It was like, I haven't used a 3D printer since my architecture days, so it's been 10, 12 years. And Jesus, have they come on in technology.
I didn't realize you bought one I assumed you got that done somewhere else.
No. So when I think about the printers that we would have used in my late uni years, you're talking like $5,000-$6,000 printers.
Yeah.
In my first year at uni, there was a 3D printer that had been provided to the university by either BP or Shell, and you're talking like a multi-million-dollar machine that just to attract students in. And we've got this amazing technology. Could we use it when we went to uni? Not at all. It's been used by Shell and BP, not by us.
Right.
But that was that printer was $300, and the print quality of it, like I spent probably half a day relearning my skills and trying to work out the best export and best settings, but out of the box and things, and just using the factory settings. Yeah, so quick, man.
It just, I mean, as you're speaking, my mind is just kind of exploding with ideas. 'Cause I saw it a couple of days ago on Instagram, but now I'm thinking, I mean, not only can you give somebody some nice renderings of a piece of potential furniture, but you can just make them a model like the old days people would do in cardboard or little timber things. But you can just zap out a print, and people can handle a thing at whatever scale it is. I mean, that's such a feature. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I have one catalogue of all my work at the exhibition, and I had 2 last year, but it was just the space required to put the catalogue down, and then you have 1 or 2 people standing there, and it's kind of blocking off your whole stand. So my idea was take physical furniture out of it. I can have more room so that people can actually walk past to see the pieces. People could be reading a catalogue there, but then on the other side, they're still seeing physical forms of the furniture, which to me are somewhat even better representatives than a photograph sometimes. So they'd look at the models and then go searching in the folio for the actual finished product. So that went down pretty well. And like I said, it's relatively low cost, high impact kind of stuff. So, yeah.
And on a technical level, I don't own a 3D printer. I've never used one, but obviously I've seen them. Getting your drawings into the 3D printer, quite straightforward?
Very, very straightforward, yeah. Just out of any 3D modeling software.
You obviously need very accurate drawings, though.
Yeah. The 3D printer will pick up if there's errors in the export, like if if your lines don't connect. And I printed some of them in stages. So like the pinch bench, I printed in like almost the way I would make the pinch bench. You're kind of printing it in layers and then laminating all the layers together. But then some of the other pieces that have unsupported edges on them, the printer just automatically generates the support for it, and it's that kind of tree-like structure that supports everything. It's freaking awesome. So yeah, it's just trying to work out whether that's the optimum way to print it, and you're ending up with a little bit of waste, and plastic waste is plastic waste, so we try to reduce that, obviously. But like I printed all of those models across probably 3 days, and the printer's just working itself. Like I have all the pieces as 3D models anyway, so it was just simplifying some of the 3D exports.
That's cool.
So yeah, it was a good exhibition. We probably had, I think there was over 1,000 people through on the first day. We had a big opening night. I've had a lot of interest. I started doing sign-up sheets for woodworking design classes, which I've spoken about for years, and finally getting some concrete interest in that. So yep, that's going to be hopefully moving ahead in September. Like I said, sort of teaching the design side of woodworking as opposed to showing people how to hand cut dovetails. So yeah, it's been going really well. So cool. 2 more days to go.
Nice.
Awesome.
That talking about 3D modeling, there's 2 kind of interesting jobs cropped up for me. Like I'm still desperate for work, and so I'm looking at whatever anyone wants to give me. And I was contacted by a person. I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to look at this drawings, so I can't be very specific. But at the end of the day, this company wanted some prototype boxes in different shapes made for their R&D, and so they wanted 6 different types of this thing, and I said, I'll whip them up, no problem, send me through some drawings and I can price it up. Well, the person only had a 3D model that was only a specific, it was whatever, I think it was Fusion 360, and I didn't know. So they use it for modeling all the parts of this company's business, but I can't open it. I don't have Fusion. I was just like, I can't open these files. And so he just said, well, I'm going somewhere else. And I was like, okay. But he just said, I don't want to print PDFs, and I don't want to stuff around converting my file. I'll just find someone else. And I said, well, just before you do, here's a heads up. You need a cabinet making type person to do this work. Most cabinet makers use proprietary cabinet making software that is like clunky and awful, and it's just designed for making boxes. I use SketchUp because I can draw everything, and yeah, I can draw everything in Fusion as well, but I don't know, I haven't learned it. I've got over 10 years in SketchUp, and so that's what I'm good at. But I just
if you've got Fusion, then how come you couldn't open the file?
No, I say I don't have Fusion.
Do you have experience with it?
No, I don't have Fusion, or I don't actually think it was Fusion. It was something that I'd heard of, but it was definitely something that cabinet makers, furniture makers wouldn't typically use. It's like for product design. But anyway, I just wanted to have the heads up that you might struggle to find somebody who can look at this file, because the industry, it's not standard in the industry to use this particular software. But I thought it was a strange
It's
way
such a strange interaction. Like, you'd think, it's nearly more work for them to then go and reach out to other people as opposed to open the file and click export as, and like, that's all you're asking them to do.
He didn't want to take shots of each of these particular objects from different sides and with different measurements on each side, and do that 6 times for the 6 different types of thing he wanted. And I said, okay, well, that's maybe fair enough, but can't help you.
I think that's a big see you later. See you later.
Yeah.
Bullet dodged.
It's funny. I was talking about it with a few guys this week. There's obviously, like, we have an Instagram chat group with a lot of the makers in Melbourne, and sometimes you'll see jobs and you'll pick up on the tone of the email. It's not a very personalized email. You can think this might be sent out to 3 or 4 different makers in the group. And one day my phone lit up in this Instagram chat, and this guy had sent this one job to every single maker in Melbourne. Nice. And it's like, dude, have a bit of fucking respect. Come on, you just expecting us all to quote on it, and you're just going to lowball and go off pick the makers that you actually want a quote out of. So yeah, as a group, we're like, anybody else going to bother with a quote? Nah. So there's a lesson to any clients listening out there, Yeah. Just pick your makers.
So
it's a very good idea, though, that group. I had a similar thing here a year ago, where myself and Dan got a job. We both did the job unaware. We both delivered the job. Then a month later, it came up in conversation, and Dan said to me, hang on, I did that. And I said, I did it. And then we joined the dots, and we realized that this guy had gone to both of us. And it was a handle for something. So it was a very small thing. It wasn't a lot of it. It wasn't a big expense. But he had got us both to do it. I try to reach out to him after that over email to very subtly try and figure out what had happened, but I couldn't. So I don't know if he just thought, let me get 2 versions and then I'll choose which one I like. But where it was really funny was the difference that we charged, because Dan was left going, shit, I undercharged massively for that, because I charged 4 times what Dan did, and got the job as well. Bizarre.
That's so weird. That is... It's like
keep your group chats going.
Yep, keep the group chats going.
I had so again, looking for work I wouldn't typically look for, and I had to quote for work in a school. And so it's all funded by the government, which means, I don't know if you've ever had to work with government paperwork.
Going through all their, becoming an approved vendor and...
Well, there's that, but they have... So this was like a renovation. It was like a double kitchen going into this new school area thing. And I called the guy and said, hey, there's no dimensions. Like, there's a nice couple of pictures, but it doesn't tell me much. And he said, oh no, that's this other document. so I get this other document, which I did have, but I looked through it and it was just words. And so I get like a 600-page document. And he goes, oh, it's all in there. You just need to find the page that's relevant to you. And so it's a specification sheet. And it's everything you can think of in the whole job. Like the roofing, the foundation work, all the stuff that's not relevant. But then there's this like 3-page section there in the middle somewhere. And it just, I mean, it's like how many screws, how many, you should use this kind of joinery, you should do this. It was like actually the specs of everything they want done down to like minutia. And I mean, talk about, it took me a week to put this quote together because of how specified everything was.
Mm.
And so I I had to include a full installation price for appliances. So I had to call my plumber and my Sparky and get like, how much is it going to cost you to come and like install this stuff? And the Sparky said to me, oh yeah, I've done a bunch of schoolwork before. You've got this giant specification sheet. And I was like, yeah, tell me about it. And he said, yeah, you know, no one checks it. No one, it's just a normal job. No one even double looks at what you've done. They just do it as a normal job. And I just thought, what? Someone is making some massive amount of money with this giant paperwork trail. I mean, it was just, anyway, a whole new learning experience for me to work in that.
I suppose it's bringing back though to Robin's original question of, you know, when something goes wrong with a job and it's not quite, you see, like a school then, if something, you delivered it and it wasn't stable or something like that, they picked up on something, they then do have the legal document to go, well, actually, this is the way it should have been done. That's probably the only time that document will ever get referred to, and it's just to give them some kind of insurance. Yeah.
But like, immediately what it does is the price just goes up and up and up and up, because every time you see something, you're like, whoop, I have to allow for that, whoop, I have to allow for this, or they might check for this, got to allow for this. And then, you know, it's just crazy why these public works are so expensive, because everyone's covering their ass.
Even when they're saying it must be this supplier, it must be this brand and stuff like that, and you're like, well, does it need to be? Yeah. It's a funny one.
Yeah,
so speaking of insurance, I've got a fun. Is it going to be fun? Interesting job this week. Old alumni of the show, Neil from Discommon, got in touch with me, and he's like, "Mate, I need your help." Next thing, I have how long would it be? Probably a meter and a bit long, CNC milled Blackbird. You know the Blackbird, the plane?
Right.
Yeah, one of his wall sculptures went to Perth and was manhandled, and it's now in bits. Oh my God. So I have to try to reassemble this mega delicate CNC'd beautiful thing that is just in pieces. So it's going to be fun. Man. I'll post some photos up on my Instagram, but yeah, like the wings have broken off and they're split along a glue line rather than a grain line. It's really strange. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one to fix.
So someone's straight up dropped this thing.
But it was fixed to the inside of the box, and like the crate isn't damaged, but it's been dropped off the crate, I would think, by a fork or something. But yeah, it's like the bits of the wings have rattled round inside there, so all the corners that aligned perfectly with the next section of the wing are all absolutely rooted. So yeah, it's going to be fun job of like lots of hand shaping and trying to plane off damaged bits and laminate new sections and then shape it back to the wing and then stain it and finish it. So that's going to be an interesting one.
And at this point, not just cheaper to just make another one.
Have you seen Neil's prices?
No, I don't know what it's going to cost. But
are you gonna
I've got a phone.
Ask for Neil's prices?
I've got a phone call to America tonight to try to work out what their insurance policy is like, because there is a lot of work in it. I mean, you could kind of budget together with epoxy and filler and stuff, and then you'd probably have to get the whole thing 2-pack sprayed black or something. And you're not really going to see as much of the grain, but yeah, to do it properly is a big job.
Yeah.
Wow. Fun times.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one there, because now the client who's receiving it, will they know? Do you think?
Don't know. It's
Yeah.
a tough one. So the conversation will go from me to Neil, and then it'll go from us to the client. Well, in fact, sorry, it'll go me to Neil, probably Neil to the insurance company back to Neil, and then we'll have a powwow and sort of bring it back to the client and say, well, because it's obviously like the client will want the piece has to arrive perfect, but it's what is their definition of perfect?
And regardless, yeah, exactly. If it gets to them and looks perfect, surely that's all good. Or do you upsell them and tell them this wing went on a journey, and we're gonna lay into this as a feature?
Yeah.
And do you have to provide an actual number? Because straight away I think charge up, but they're going to want a number, right?
Like, I reckon it's probably going to... Because it's going to require... The whole finish is going to have to be stripped off it. And it's got a black stain and then some kind of sealer over the top. So the whole thing needs to be sanded by hand, and it's delicate.
You're actually making me feel anxious just talking about this.
Wait till you see the photo of it. That'll make you feel properly anxious. But, yeah, it's one of those things. Like, I don't say yes to many repair jobs, but obviously Neil and I have a bit of history, and it's an interesting piece to be working on. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with it. Stay tuned.
Looking forward to the photo, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's leave it there. Thanks so much, guys, for the help on that drawing. We'll see what the comments go, or how the comments go. If people are enjoying this type of thing, we can do more of it. You know, if we want to bring a quote to the table, I think it's an interesting idea. So for everyone out there listening, or preferably watching, if you like that, let us know.
Yep. Sweet.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, guys, take it easy.
See ya. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.